All right, so we have made some biomes. Now, how do we get the biomes actually on the course? We do that with something called a mask, a biome mask. And we talked a little bit about it when we were creating the biome, but not a lot. So now we're going to talk about biome mask, vegetation areas, vegetation lines, and how everything interacts together. And this course is a really good one to show because I've got some overlapping biome mask and a couple of vegetation items and stuff that we can play with. This is Grand National Robert Trent Jones course, really cool course. But so talking about mask, so back to just creating one. We're going to go mask, biome mask, new. You're going to click anywhere. Then you're going to hold control down and click and make your area. Control down and click. It's going to go to the closest point between 2 points. So you have to kind of be careful with this when you're clicking around because let's say, all right, so to delete a point, let's talk about that first. Shift, control, and click deletes a point. So if we were trying to put, let's say we were trying to put a point here and we did control and clicked on right there. So that one worked. What you have to watch out for is when you get a little farther away, sometimes it doesn't know which line you're trying to add a point on. That's what I was trying to get it to do. So sometimes it'll add it there, but sometimes, so I'm trying to add one on this line and I click here. Well, it adds one on this line. So you have to kind of watch that as you do the mask. Just make sure what a good habit, let's delete that one. So what I try to do, and it seems to work pretty good, is kind of make a square first. So if we're going to make a biome in this area, we're going to go click, 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 click. Then you can come around and extend it. And usually that works pretty good as far as getting your boundaries and everything where you want them. Another way to create a biome mask is something called mask to mesh. We're going to do that one right here so we can play with it a little bit because there's a couple of important things with the mask to mesh. Mask from mesh MFM is it's really a performance heavy option. So I try not to use a lot of these. Sometimes it's just handy to use. But if you do one of these, so there you go, mask from a mesh. We're going to click that. This comes up, then you click any. It shows you where it's going to be, shows you the outline of the mesh. Do you want to generate? Yes. Now you can see it puts a ton of nodes around here. And this is what gets to be a performance heavy drag. When you get a lot of these, if you do several of these mesh to mask, then you end up with a really big performance drain. So one way around this, and I found this works really good, is node density. When you do one of these, just hit less. And what it does is it cuts a ton of these out, okay? Then if you need to, you can rearrange these. So let's say we wanted to add one back there. But for the most part, you can see it cut this probably in half, if not a little bit more. Now it makes it manageable. You can go around and you can change this little outline if you need to. You can add an extra one. If you got too many, you can shift, control, delete one, and it just makes it a more manageable area. All right, so that's kind of got the how to create them. Let's look at this one right here real quick, and we'll talk a little bit about what's in here. So blend distance, like I said, I don't use it a lot, but you can. And what it does is it kind of filters them out a little, makes them not go all the way to the edge. I like them all the way to the edge, then I can control the edge. Let's see. Noise, I'm going to be honest, I've played with this and I have never seen a bit of difference. So I'm not sure exactly what this is supposed to do, but I've never been able to make it do anything. Scale, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. I don't mess with that much at all because it tends to go really, really, really crazy, as you can see. We may have to close this out, and oh, that really messed that up. That's why I don't play with that one much. All right, I'm going to pause and get this cleaned up. All right, so that last little uh-oh brings up a good point. There is no undo in Arborist. So the reason I said in one of the other videos, I'll save periodically, and it gives me a kind of restore point. So since I had not saved any of that stuff that we just messed up, I just closed out and then brought it back up, and everything is back where it was supposed to be. That's a good where you don't freak out when you mess something up. Okay, so biome mask, you can only have one biome mask plant in any one area. So this area right here is actually three different biomes, three different biome masks. So if I right click, you can see that's one. If I right click here, that's one, and right click there, that's one. So we're going to go biome mask. Within these biome masks, you're going to assign your biome types. The biome types are what control what overplants each other. And that goes back, and I know this gets a little confusing. So if we go back to our biomes, I assign a sort order on my biomes. And I didn't really talk about this in the biomes. I probably should have, but it's a good place to put it here because this is going to make more sense here. So the higher the number on sort order, the higher priority it is planting. So I've got, let's look at this. I've got lake edges at a 2. I've got my main grass at a 1. So lake edge will overplant my main grass. And then the rocks, I believe I have over both of them. No, I have rocks under both of them. Okay. So when we play with this in a second, when I drag these other two into the rocks, it will actually remove the rocks and put the grass. Okay. So remember those sort orders. We've got rocks, then main grass, then lake grass. All right. Let's go back to, I have a habit of going back to here. It's because originally we didn't have this shortcut. Now we have a shortcut where you can right click, it pulls up whatever mask it is, it pulls up whatever the biome is. I forget about it sometimes because I'm still so used to using the old stuff. So if I take that node and I drag it in, it brings the grass in and takes the rocks out. So you can see how it just overwrites it. And that's, you really need that concept. So if I drag it back this way, obviously there's nothing there. So I take it up, and that's how I got this little kind of area where the grass is coming into the rocks in different spots. It's because I pulled the grass down in there, and it actually removes the rocks and brings the grass in. Let's look up here. So let's go a little farther up this way. And this gets into the lake grass overriding the main grass. So we could bring that up and extends. Now, on the other hand, if we go to this one, so this is the main grass, okay? Main grass right here, biome, main grass, different mask. No matter how far I drag this out, it's not going to plant that grass because that's not the priority. The priority is the lake grass. The priority is set by the biome type in the sort order. Okay, very important concept. All right, so we've got biome mask kind of covered, how to put stuff out, and then you just go around and wherever you want stuff, you put a mask. So I've got a mask over here, got trees. Over on this area, I wanted a little extra grass around the edges, so I had my trees pulled back. I actually did a separate little grass biome around it. You can see this is way up in here. It does nothing because the trees overwrite the grass. All right. That's got our biome mask covered. Let's talk about where you would use a vegetation line real quick. Okay, so let's go back over here, let's extend this. I have I've got two different ones here, and it just worked out this way where I've got grass on this side of the path and I've got grass on this side of the path. It just happened to work out that way. There are times where we will have a biome that stretches all the way across a cart path. All right, so let's just play with this, and we'll say that happened here. And we want to get rid of this stuff on the cart path. So you can create something called a vegetation line. Vegetation line. We're going to hit the plus button to start a new one. Left click, control left click, control left click. Go up and around. Not really worry about being real precise. Okay, so we've got it made. So with the vegetation line, you can remove stuff or you can add stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about adding stuff in a minute. But let's say I just wanted to remove the grass. That removes all that grass. You can change your width. So I want to bring it up closer to the path. I want to take it out farther away from the path. And you can see it takes it all the way out, no matter what biome is around it. So it's taking it out of both of them because it's removing it. If we wanted to remove it, and let's just delete that one out. Let's play with this over here. All right, so that's removing items with the vegetation line. Vegetation lines and vegetation areas are going to act very, very similar. So when I talk about one, I'm really talking about both of them. So don't let those two things confuse you. Difference in a vegetation area mask is, instead of a line, you can do it like a biome. You can create a larger area with one thing, but it works just the same way. So we can remove items or not remove items. We can remove items, and if we have something called a vegetation item, so in this biome, let's go to my biome, grassland biome, and this, sometimes when you do that right click and go to a biome, it won't pull up the right one. So make sure you're on the right one before you start playing with stuff. I always verify that. But in this grass biome, I've got one item, and if you've watched along the whole thing, you'll remember this vegetation mask rule. So I've got a vegetation mask rule, and this grass is vegetation type 1. So that comes into play when we start using these vegetation areas and vegetation line mask. So if we go back here to my vegetation area mask, like I said, we can remove items, we can put them back, we can add items. So include vegetation, we're going to hit my little plus button, and it's going to put vegetation type 1. If I had multiple items, I could select a different one. If I wanted to add, let's say I had vegetation type 2 as one thing, and I wanted to put type 2 and type 1, we would add another one. So item 2, you can see now I've got a drop down. I've got item 1, I've got item 2. Item 2 I've got set as vegetation type 1. Item 1 I set as type 2. So the only one that's really showing is the item 1 because I don't have a type 2. But so we added that in. Now we can add it in after we remove, or we can just not remove and add it into the grass biome itself. I know it's kind of confusing. It'll make sense when you start playing with it. It's just a lot, and I'm trying to cover a lot in this one video. So when you use a vegetation item like this, you can actually control a couple of other things with it. So you can control the density of that item. So if I wanted it a little less dense, just drag that density back, and then it's only a few of them. You can control the size. So if we wanted this area to be a little taller, can make it a little taller. You wanted it to be shorter, can make it a little bit shorter. So you can play with a couple of different additional things when you're using the vegetation mask. You can do the same thing with this with a line and add the item in just like you can with an area. Let me pause for just a second. Let me make sure I've got everything covered that I needed to. Okay, I did think about one other thing when you're dealing with biome mask and vegetation areas and lines, and that is tight edges. Okay, so we're going to bring up a biome mask, and that's where I've put this biome. Okay, this is my main tree biome. It's got trees and grasses. And there's something called tight edges. So what tight edges is like an invisible fence that goes up from the line so that nothing above the line can extend over. When you're doing a mask, the line at the bottom is where this plants. So if I move that line in on that tree goes away. Move it out, tree comes back. So that is the bottom, the base of the tree. But let's say for some reason we wanted a wall going up, you hit tight edges, and it's going to take away everything that hangs over that line. I very rarely use this. I just don't have a use for it, but it is there. And if you need it, it will really, it makes a hard line all the way down that fairway, which I don't really like. You can do the same thing with your vegetation lines. So with vegetation lines, let's see if I can get up in here a little bit. That'll be a good spot right there. You can remove individual things. So if I put grasses back, I don't know if I have plants or not on this. I always just uncheck all of these or check all of these. And trees. So see, I had a couple of trees that were on the path. So I just came in, put a line, and hit my little check box. So with each individual item, you can do tight edges. So grass, you're probably not going to notice. Yeah, you did notice a little bit there. So because my width is all the way out to here, these grasses are hanging over that line. So when I hit tight edges, it removes those. Trees that are hanging over the edge, tight edges, it's going to remove them. Again, it removes a lot of stuff because you got to think, all of this stuff that's hanging over this fence extending vertically is going to get removed. So you have to be really careful with the tight edges. That's going to cover all of the mask. So at this point, you should be able to build your biomes. You should be able to plant your biomes. You should be able to adjust the colors. And this should get you most of the way there. All right, we got a little end of video edit here. I don't know if you guys caught that. I was kind of watching this video back and making sure everything made sense. And I noticed, I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but if we go back into our biomes and our sort orders, biomes, the main grass is a 1 and the rock is a 1. So this brings up another little scenario, and I actually did this on purpose. It wasn't a mistake when I was setting it up, but I just forgot how I set it up. So what this will do, let's go back in here. Let's go to the mask, and let's show you something right here real quick. So if I drag this out where we'll be able to see. Okay, so now they're the same sort order. So how does it know which one to plant? Well, it kind of doesn't. We have to kind of trick it on this. So since these overlap, the last one that I edit will be the one that plants. So right now, the last one that we have edited is the rocks. If I pull up the grass, if I can find it, let's get rid of that. Hang on, let me get my grass one. There we go. Okay. So you can see how it overplants it because it's the last one I touched. So it overplanted where we had drugged the rocks. If I go back to the rocks, it goes back and it overplants. So it's the last one that you touch. This can get really tricky. You have to be really careful with this. I don't do this much since this rock area was so small, and that was the only place that I was using rocks. I didn't have a problem with it, and the reason I did it was so I could quickly kind of move these in and out. It's just it's an easier way to drag it in. You can see how I've got a little grass dragging into the rocks right here. It was an easy way to get the grass looking like it was coming in. So, but anyway, I wanted to pull that back in and make sure I didn't confuse anybody with those sort orders. But so again, if they're the same sort order, it's the last one that you edit that will overwrite the other one.